Okay, we'll call to order the Raymore Parks and Rec Board meeting for Tuesday, March 23rd, 2029. Roll call, please.
Let's see, Member Bartow is absent. Member Collier.
Present.
Member Williamson is absent. Member Manson.
Present.
Member Troutman.
Present.
Member Casas. Member Howdyshell.
Present.
Member Supple.
Present.
And Member Harris.
Present.
We'll now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, seeing no personal appearances, we will move on to the consent agenda. This will cover, we'll do one action item for 3 pieces: Park Board minutes from October 27th, Park Board special meeting minutes from December 8th, and Park Board special meeting minutes from March 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the consent agenda as presented, items A, B, and C.
I'll second.
Okay, hearing a first and a second, any discussion or changes? If not, we'll move to vote. All those in favor? Carries. Next, we'll move on to staff reports. Director?
Thank you, sir. I would like to call Athletic Coordinator Todd Brennan to do a quarterly update on our athletic department.
Thank you, Director Mustine. As Director Mustine mentioned, just wanted to come give you a quick update on where we are currently at with the spring 2020-2021 spring sports season. As you are aware, we did not have a spring season last year, so this is the first spring sports season that we will have held since spring 2019. Where we are currently at is flag football and soccer are in their 3rd week of practices. They will actually have their first Saturday of games at Recreation Park this Saturday. And volleyball is, this is actually their first week of practices, and their first games will be held on April 10th at the Raymore Activity Center. Do want to give you some quick numbers for what our registration numbers were this spring. As I mentioned before, we did not have a 2020 spring sports season, so I'll compare those numbers with what we had from 2019. We had 255 children register in the Recreation Soccer League. That compares to, in 2019, we had 269. Not included in those 255 numbers is we also, this is the first spring for which we held our social league. We first held it last fall where we had 17 kids register. This spring we saw an increase in the social league. We now have 45 kids registered in our social league altogether. Within the entirety of the recreation soccer program, we have 298 total kids register. So we saw an increase of 29 kids from 2 years ago. This is also the first spring since I've been here that we've held spring flag football. Brand new program, wasn't really sure what to expect in the spring. Received some requests each fall to offer it in the spring, so decided to do so. I was expecting somewhere between 60 and 70 kids to register. Excuse me. We actually saw 115 kids register alone for spring flag football. And we also saw an increase in our recreation volleyball registrations. 2 years ago, we had 102 kids register. This spring, we have 126 kids register. And then I didn't mention tiny soccer. We are filled to capacity. We offer 3 different sessions, a Thursday night session and then 2 Saturday morning sessions. Each class is filled to capacity. In total, spring numbers this year compared to the 2019 numbers that we had. In 2019, we had 439 kids total enrolled in our spring sports program. This year, we've got 601 kids register. So we saw a pretty big increase from this spring compared to 2 years ago. And then want to quickly mention that because we are now prepping for this spring/summer baseball and softball season, registration deadline is actually this upcoming Friday. And then in the coming weeks, we'll have a coaches meeting, and then teams will begin practicing about mid-April at Recreation Park and Memorial Park. That concludes my report. If anyone has any questions, I would be happy to ask or answer them to the best that I can.
Any questions for Athletic Coordinator Brennan? Brian?
Yeah, in your opinion, because it's great to see an increase in the numbers, do you think that's because of an increase in population in Raymore for the last 2 years, and or are other cities not offering the same number of sports because they're still in the we're not offering every program at this point, or is everybody pretty much open now?
I'm not sure. I guess to best answer your question, I would say it's probably a mixture of both. Other cities or other neighboring cities have offered spring flag football. This is brand new to us in the spring. So I think we've had some that were going to other cities to participate in participate in flag football in the spring. So I honestly, I think it's probably a mixture of everything. I don't have an exact answer for you.
Melinda?
Okay, you said they were filled to capacity on the tiny soccer. What's capacity, though?
We have offer a max enrollment of 20 kids per session. So we've got
60 kids
Yep.
then.
Yeah, on the independent leagues where there was a struggle last year with getting games for them, and then basically the independent teams were just playing some of the other rec teams. Is that what's the status of that this year?
We are currently still taking registrations, so I'll know more in the coming weeks on where we currently stand. We will have to share play with neighboring cities, so until I know what they have, I will say compared to the fall, as of right now, I believe we had 2 independent teams total register, one of them being a 10U softball team. We are currently at 8 total teams within, and 2 softball teams, but until I know what the other neighboring towns are, I don't have, I guess, a complete answer for you, but numbers are up from the fall in the independent baseball and softball divisions.
Anyone else? Bill?
Thank you, Todd. That was a good presentation. Concerning the increase in numbers, I'm assuming over the near future, you'll probably try to keep stats on that as far as determining if it is a population increase, as Brian asked, or if it is just the fact that as a result of last year's COVID, people are just wanting to get out of the house, and more importantly, their kids, and do something. And that's what I'm more interested in, is if the current population, if it's not an increase by population, it's just an increase in participation because of COVID, because that would be an interesting stat to see.
And I think also it's compared to previous seasons and previous years, we're offering more. As we mentioned in the fall, we rebranded the competitive to the independent league. We are offering social league, which is brand new. I've had a couple conversations with different parents who they were ecstatic that we were offering something like the social league, because not that they wouldn't have put their children in rec league, but there are different expectations, and they were just extremely grateful that this was something that we were offering. And then on top of that, flag football, that's something that we had not been offering, and I was kind of expecting to see numbers possibly dip from, say, soccer, and they didn't, they increased. So I think a lot of it was just, this is something that there was an interest in the population for this, and this was something that we were not offering and we now are.
Thank you.
Brian?
I have a follow-up. The tiny sport is full. We got 3 sessions, it's full. So obviously the demand is there. Is there any ability to expand those resources and offer more sessions?
If there is a greater interest, we do have a few kids on the wait list currently to see if anyone should drop. Now we will probably, because there's only about 2 or 3 kids currently on the wait list, we will, if those numbers increase to then yes, we will probably look at adding a 4th class. Currently, as we get closer, we'll probably just see if there's interest in adding those kids to the sessions that are currently offered.
Okay. I didn't know if the demand was, oh my God, we got 40 kids on a wait list, but we can't get an instructor, we don't have space. But if it's just a couple of kids, then yeah, I get it.
Melinda, did you have a question?
I did, but I took Brian's question earlier, and you took mine just now, but actually I have a second one I could ask. Sorry. Is it due to something different you're doing? I mean, are you advertising more in different places? Is there another factor in that we haven't seen yet, or? That's an overall.
Right. I don't know if it's anything that we're doing differently when it comes to, say, advertising. That would probably be a better question for our communications manager, who does a fantastic job using Facebook, getting the message out there to the public. I would say just from my end, what I try to do is build camaraderie and relationships with the coaches, and specifically good coaches, because I find that if you're able to keep good coaches, parents want their children to play for those coaches and continue coming back and enrolling in our programs. So, but as far as the advertising and marketing, I can't say right now that we're doing anything necessarily different from past seasons and past years.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. I just have one question in 26 parts. So, no, actually, I just wanted to follow up. For those who don't follow flag football, there was another group who started for the first time in this area and who's been in football for a long time. For you to pull 115 kids into flag football in a new program is incredible and a great job, whether you want to take credit for it or not through advertising or whatever. The odds that we'd get that many kiddos wanting to play football for the first time in the spring is incredible, because again, the other group put out flyers, they put out signs, they put out everything, and that's an excellent work by you and your group, and I appreciate that. And then of course, you know, the social league I'm pretty close to, and for that to grow 3 times, it just proves that it was the right thing to do. So Director, thank you for putting it out there, and the rest of you for working on it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Director?
Thank you, Todd. Nice job. Superintendent Gibbs will give a Recreation Division report.
Thank you, Mr. Mustine, and also thank you to Todd for making my report so much shorter. It is nice to be able to start showcasing some spring sports. Last time, or a couple times ago, that we were actually able to meet together, my report and our reports were much more dismal, you know, because we just didn't have a whole lot to report to you. But I think the efforts of both athletic coordinator and our recreation coordinator in showing that we didn't stop. When the world stopped, we just didn't stop. We kept planning, and now we're starting to see some of the fruits of those labors. And so that might be where that 115, 120 kids is coming from, even though Todd might not want to take any of the credit for it. He is to credit for it. So that's an important distinction. I wanted to talk just a little bit today or tonight about the grand opening events for the TB Hanna Playground, the shelter, and the park. We do have a date of May 26, 3:30 in the afternoon. You will be receiving from the city in the mail at some point a save the date card. And then there will also be a full schedule of events, and if we're not sure who wants to talk, who needs to talk, who wants to be a part of the event and how they want to be a part, but you will be engaged with some of that as well. So we're working with different groups as far as trying to see what the schedule of events, who's going to be there, as far as what kid or kids or whoever we have that actually hit the button that makes the water squirt for the first time. We were looking at some different vendors, whether it be food trucks or balloons or whatever it happens to be, just to make it such a fun family event to really kick off the efforts that the department and the city have put forth to make that park come into fruition. So just wanted to touch on a couple of the recreation programs that we've got coming. There is a full report. There's quite a few things on it in there as well. Wanted to talk about the Easter egg hunt that I know that we talked a little bit in the work session. It is April 3rd, and like Director Mustine mentioned, that will be an event. Corinne will be operating from Centerview. It will be online through Facebook about every 20 minutes or so. There will be new clues that are dropped, and there will be eggs hidden in our parks, and the clues will lead them to those eggs. A family finds an egg, they bring it back to Centerview, and they redeem a family Easter gift bag type of a prize. So that should be kind of fun. The next thing is Unicorn Day. Who knew there was a Unicorn Day? But there is. It's April 10th. We're going to have it at Moon Valley. And Corinne has summoned a magical unicorn to appear, so it will be good for Steve can't ride the magical unicorn, but it will be there for photo opportunities, as well as having games and unicorn snacks. There's going to be like a fluff and fill station, kind of a Build-A-Bear type of a concept for the kiddos to make their own unicorns. Do want to let you know that I am working on a grade step and pay scale development or implementation of being able to show what we pay and how we pay our part-time folks. It all started with just a simple review of job descriptions, and it's gotten a little bit bigger. We've reviewed some job descriptions. We've combined some of those job descriptions where we had a whole bunch, and now we're grouping them more into categories. And so that will allow us to better keep track of the progression of our staff, and basically having different steps so they know a progression if they want to get from here to here, what they have to do to be able to do that. It's also going to help us with the budget process once we get into that, especially with the minimum wage, because it did go up again this past January. It'll go up again the following January, and it'll go up the January after that. I've built these tables so that we will be able to budget far in advance of all of our part-time folks, which will give us a better idea. We know how many hours average they're working per summer. We'll now be able to put new pay scales on that along with their seniority and be able to better project our payrolls coming through. That concludes my report.
Any questions? You did an excellent job. No questions. Director?
Thank you, sir. I will ask Superintendent Rulo for a Parks report.
Thank you. I submitted a written report, but wanted to hit on a few items. This past winter, that 2-week spell where it was super cold, we did have quite a few major water line breaks in our restrooms. By the end of this week, I'm hoping to have all of them fixed. So right now we are looking at April 5th to have all the restrooms open up for the season. We'll be weather pending. If the weather does change again, we will obviously shut them down on a needed basis. This weekend, soccer will be open during gameplay, and then we'll shut it down later that afternoon, just to be safe. Also, staff is going to start, I think tomorrow, weather pending. If not tomorrow, it'll be on Thursday, redoing the Optimist shelter down in Recreation Park by the soccer concession stand. It's in dire need of a facelift. The Optimist shelter, we asked them if they were interested in helping out. They did contribute, I'm not sure how much that was, but a little over $600, which should cover the refacing of it and a repaint. So going to get started on that here by the end of the week. And other than that, we've been spending just about every day training our new guys. I think about a month and a half ago, February 1st, I had my 3 new guys started. I'm pretty sure I told you all that once, but been trying to train them on equipment, train them on routines, everything that we do, when we do it, and why we do it. It's the first time since my tenure here that we had half the crew brand new. So it's going to be a little different this year, but I think we got it under control. And also just wanted to let everybody know that we did get accepted for the Tree City USA again, and this is our 7th year running. And we have a bicentennial tree. Is that what it is? Bicentennial tree that we got from the MPRA, Missouri Parks and Recreation Association, last year. It kind of a deal where they put it out to all the cities, and they tried to get, was it 200 trees in different cities planted, just to just show tribute to the Tree City USA. So I picked that up on Friday, and that'll be it's a hawthorn tree, I believe, and that's going to be our Arbor Day tree that we'll be planting probably in mid-May. I'll let you all know when that day is. Other than that, I think that's the end of my report. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Brian?
Mr. Rulo, I was in the park, rec park, a week ago, maybe, walking the dog, and I saw the awnings are up over the baseball complex, but I saw a few of them have some small rips in those. I'm assuming as the wind blows through it, that's going to get a little bit worse. Do we sew those up? Do we just replace the whole thing? Will it not spread anymore? I don't know what a replacement time is on those and how long they should last.
We really didn't know. We were hoping we'd get at least 10 years out of them whenever we put them up. I think there are a few that have small holes in them. They've been there for a couple years. Some came from the 4th of July celebration, and I think one came from a mouse. We were talking in our superintendent's meeting this week. We're going to try to find one of the companies that builds these shades structures for us to see. There's got to be somebody that can come out and patch them when we pull them down, throw a patch on them, which hopefully will get us through, to where we can budget them. But as of now, I was talking with my crew leader this week on how we could clean those also, because you probably noticed on the yellow ones they're kind of dirty. So we're going to try to power wash from the underneath side to blow the dirt off of them, and then hopefully this fall, or if we bring them down, to contact somebody to see if we can get a patch or something on those things. So.
Anyone else? Josh?
Mr. Rulo, can you remind me of the maintenance process we have for pre-emergent for our yards and stuff, and how that works? Do you guys do any of that, or is it all contracted out?
Are you talking about for?
Well, I'm talking about, like, the amphitheater looks so nice right now, and just the process of how we're going to keep it looking nice and stuff like that.
Some of the I'll say our standard. You guys remember the standardized parks that we did a few years back? We were going to go ahead and redo them, and I think we're in the process of doing that for the master plan. But like here at City Hall, it's considered an A, where nowadays we actually have a contractor that comes in and they do the fertilizing and pre-emergent or grub control on City Hall, Centerview, and Public Works in the rack. Ball fields, the city staff used to do them, but like the director was saying a little while ago, we got a sponsor that come in. What's her name? Big Green, and Big Green Turf, and so they have done certain portions of our ball fields in lieu of a sponsorship. So we do not do all parts of parks. Mainly, I think in the past years before I was here, we did that. Certain areas that stay wet, it got impossible to keep up with the mowing. So we kind of hit the main areas. The amphitheater will be taken care of by city staff, and we'll be putting some fertilizer down there here shortly.
Thank you. I know that was kind of a curveball, so thank you.
Not a problem.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Director?
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to keep going on that. It's kind of a good segue into the upcoming ballot issue on the use tax. That's the exact kind of projects that if the use tax passes and the additional employees are brought on, those are the types of things that we'll have the time and the resources to do that we typically have to set aside, you know. So that's a perfect example of something that would become more of a routine, not just the amphitheater like Steve said, which is what we consider an A, but also doing stuff like that on those areas that are categorized as B and sometimes even C, depending on seasonal, how that would work. So next, I want to thank Todd for blowing up all of the bracket or the numbers that I put in my staff report that he gave me last week. Everything that I provided you was completely different what he said verbally tonight. So I appreciate that. That was great, Todd. Thank you for that. We had a lot of staff report tonight, and so the only thing that really I want to bring up is just a reminder. In 3 weeks, it's April 13th is supposed to be our second or our work session for April. We are actually at Columbia for our MPRA conference. We're one of the few states right now who we postponed our winter conference in hopes that we would be able to do an in-person conference, and that is happening. So we will not have a meeting April 13th as me, Steve, Jimmy, and Corinne will be out of town that week. Unless, of course, you'd like Todd to host the meeting for you, I would more than happy to commission Todd to, would you like, no, okay. So Todd's gonna be busy that night. So outside of that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we've done a pretty good job of staff reports tonight. That concludes that portion of our meeting.
Any questions for the director? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Okay, we have no unfinished business, so we'll move to new business. Action item A, overnight camping policy. Director?
Thank you, sir. So tonight we brought forward a revised overnight camping policy. At our last meeting during, we discussed a little bit about that, what we wanted to do, and whether the board was interested in changing that policy. We got favorable response from you guys in terms of adjusting the policy to not just be at Recreation Park, but to give us some flexibility of where we can allow groups to camp. So I made the changes that we had discussed, and in your packet I gave you, not a red line, for some reason it's green lined in that particular Google Docs, but an update of all the changes that we had made. Most specifically is that we can approve any location, whereas the former policy only allowed it at Recreation Park, and in that particular case, it meant Moon Valley Park, where the fire pit is, because that's what the fire pit was built for. We removed that stipulation so that depending on where the request is, we can approve that, and that would be a decision that I ultimately make, but with the counsel of my superintendents here. And then if it's obviously a controversial location and something that I feel needs to come to the board, then we bring it to the board. Second is campfires. I know at Recreation Park, we had the fire pit, which is why we kept it there. We don't want open burning on the ground, so wherever they are, if it's at Rec Park, they have to use that fire pit. If it's somewhere else, they need to bring in the portable backyard fire pits that they can clean out and take out with them, so that we're not leaving fire rings in place all over the park to give the idea that anybody can just light up a campfire. And the final portion is if a camping event is near a shelter and they are going to use that shelter, that we require them to rent the shelter. So that's part of it. However, we are also adding, it's a privilege to get to camp overnight in the parks because that's against municipal code outside of this policy that we have, and we don't want that to become something that is one of those things that is taken for granted. It is a privilege to be able to do that, and we want them to earn that right. So we put in there a provision that a park service project has to be completed in exchange for the overnight camping. That project has to be pre-approved by most likely me and Steve, in terms that it would be a park project, but there are cases where it would be something that Jimmy or Todd's crew, or even Corinne during a special event, might be useful to, but it's not going to be something that's an easy project. It's going to be significant and be of value and a benefit to the department. So those are the three changes. You have the green line draft before you. We recommend these changes, and that concludes staff report.
Any questions for the director? Brian?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the overnight camping policy as amended and presented to us.
I'll second.
Okay, hearing a first and second, any discussion? Melinda?
Okay, I'm just curious. How do they notify the park neighbors? Is it usually like a letter sent out to these, select
Yes,
people?
there's an application that is not in this packet, but it's basically a special use permit that's specifically towards this overnight camping. When we select, what we did was we took it out. It used to have the addresses already in there because it was always Rec Park. I took those out because it could be anywhere. When they select a place or it's approved, then we will provide them the addresses of the park neighbors. And then there's a draft letter at the end of your packet that is just a template that we'll fill out for them and then give it to, so say it's Troop 32, Dan Barnes. I'll fill this letter out, give it to Dan, and they have to go and hand deliver it to him. Not mail it, but they have to hand deliver it.
Okay.
We want that group to verbally tell these folks, or at least pass it off, so that if there's any questions, the person in charge can be there and take care of those questions.
Okay, so like in the instance of Hawk Ridge, when, they're getting ready to do that one, what's considered neighbors? I mean, is it just that street there that, or maybe a few houses that since they're gonna be so far removed from, well, really, I guess in Moon Valley, they're pretty far removed from any true neighbors there too, so.
For Hawk Ridge, just as an example, it would be both sides of Johnston Drive at the beginning of Hawk Ridge all the way to the North Shelter. And that would be probably as far as we would go with that.
I was just curious.
Now, the other thing is that they have to notify the fire department and the police department, so that if anybody calls and said, hey, there's people, both emergency services are aware of it as well.
Okay, thanks.
It will also be kind of as we do it, we'll figure out what's the most important or the closest addresses, and which ones would, depending on the group or how big the party is, or, so we'll wing it.
Brian, did you have a question? You two are on the same wavelength. I like it. Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any other questions, I'll take it to a vote. All those in favor? Passes. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any public comment, so we will go to board member comment. Simon, you're up first. Yeah.
I have nothing to say. Everybody's doing a great job. I like the.
Thank you, sir. Bill?
Nothing tonight.
Melinda?
Well, I first have to start by telling Brian, thank you for your service. You've been here since I have, and, well, before I was here. And so it was nice to always have your leadership and your knowledge, and so I just wanted to personally thank you. And Todd, you did a great job tonight. So just because we had a ton of questions, really basically to harass you and make you think. So anyway, it was a good job. Thanks for doing it. And
Josh?
I have nothing.
Ryan Supple?
Yeah, I'll say the same thing for Brian. It's been a pleasure working with you and serving with you, and so best of luck to you as you move and all that fun stuff that goes along with that. And to the staff, everybody's done great. Appreciate everybody's work, and it's all good.
Great. Normally I'd go last, but I would like Brian to go last. So just a couple of things. I would ask for those watching online to make sure you understand the tax that's coming up, the tax bill, the goods, the bads. Do some investigating into it. As we've talked about tonight, there's going to be some real goods for Parks and Recs if passed, so I would like you to look at it. I can't say enough to Brian as I came in very new to this thing. Brian kind of helped me along, and his knowledge is going to be incredibly missed. I don't know how we replace that, but we'll figure it out. And no further ado, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As most of you have probably figured out, if you don't already know, tonight is my last meeting. Almost made it 15 years. I think I'm a couple months shy of 15 years, but we sold our house, and so we're out on the 14th is our closing day. People have asked where we're going, and until we get outbid somebody in the house, because we were trying tonight and found out that's crazy, we'll be temporarily living in Silver Lake with my parents in their basement. But it has been it's been fun doing this. I enjoy this. I've met a ton of people. Got to experience a lot. I kind of like the political stuff, so I got to get my hands into that and see what's going on. Most of the citizens don't know, but I certainly want to thank them for, not calling the mayor or somebody and getting me kicked off the board and trusting me to be part of this process. And I also want to thank the mayors I served under, Mr. Turnbow, Mr. Alonzo, Mr. Kirkhoff. I feel like there's another one in there, but I can't remember, just those three. And then the numerous city council people that have been on city council that I've seen come and go, interacted with almost all of them, but not all of them. Of course, the park board members over all these years, I don't know, there's been 7 or 8 chairmen I've been and served with, and then I don't know how many members there have been. I don't know, 30. I'm just going to throw out a number, or probably more than that. But everybody has been very nice to me and very cordial, and this has been a great experience. And then there's 4 people in particular I want to single out and mention that I appreciate their help and everything they've done for me. The first is Janet Snook. If nobody ever met Janet Snook, she was the first director that was here when I came on board. And she was a real go-getter. She was super helpful at everything, and was a taskmaster on top of everything, and helped me understand kind of what boards did, and what, I don't know, was required of us as a volunteer, but kind of what was expected, and then let us grow a little bit too and learn the processes we went along. The first project I guess I did, if anybody really cares, now going down memory lane, was The big project, the only one I can really remember early was the Memorial Park concession stand. So when I came on board, Nathan was here at the time, Steve was here. I don't remember what it was, to be quite honest, because I think my first meeting, they were halfway into the project, right? Putting up walls and deciding what the brick was going to look like. Oh, this is fun. This is great. And when you look back at that, for us, that was a huge project. That was a big deal, man. We were going to spend a bunch of money on this. And now when we see what we're building with the rack and all of that, coming in, of course, I was totally shy. I was timid. I was 15 at the time. I will say I came from Raytown, and I was on their park board for a couple of years before coming here. So I kind of had a little understanding, but I still didn't know anybody here. We had only been here less than a year, I think, when I got on the park board. So I didn't even know anybody in town. I was kind of shy and timid. But everybody was super helpful early on, so that worked out great. The second person I really want to thank is Mr. Fairborn. I've had two city managers since I've been on the board, Mr. Berlin and Mr. Fairborn. And I was in my second stint, I think, as chairman when Mr. Fairborn became the city administrator or manager now? I'm not sure. The manager. Okay, so he changed from administrator to manager. And so I had to work with him a lot directly as we were going through some personnel changes and stuff. He is outstanding, and man, he knows his stuff. And if anybody in the city thinks Raymore is an issue or whatever, I can tell you they have one of the best managers that I've ever met. Now, I haven't met a whole ton, but he has a ton of character, and he is super, super knowledgeable, and really, to me, just a great guy. So I want to thank him for him helping me and just being there. Then I want to thank Mr. Steve Rula over here. So he has been here with the city as long as I have, and I think over these years we've built a friendship. We don't hang out on the weekends because he sits and drinks beer a lot, and I sit and drink a lot of vodka a lot, and so that's just kind of the way it is. But he's more of a hunter than I am. I'm more of a city slicker. But every month and every 2 weeks I get to see him in events and stuff. It's always great. And I ask him stuff, and he always helps me out, and has just been great. I just appreciated you being around. So thank you, sir. And then, of course, the last one is Mr. Nathan Mustine. So Nathan was the recreation coordinator, I think was his official title when I came on board. And of course, I'm an athlete. If anybody doesn't know, I'm in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But I'm kind of that's my forte. I'm not an arborist. I'm not a landscaper. I can't grow plants or any of that stuff. I enjoy the sports and the activity side, and that was what Nathan was doing here. So I felt that immediate connection to what he did, and so I think we grew a bond there. And then he abandoned us for a couple of years, but we were able to bring Nathan back. And I can say it's one of the best decisions we've made, seeing him and what he's done in his years back, 6 years now? 6 years, give or take. We are growing as a city, and we're growing with bond money, and how it's helping to grow projects. But Nathan's leadership on these projects and his organization and his presentation and all that has grown a lot. It's been great. It helps us as a board do what we need to do. Again, I think we're friends after all these years. And so I appreciate you helping us out and taking some of my jazz I give you and all that. But that's enough. I just want to say thanks to everybody for letting me do this. Who knows? We might get lucky and get a house in Raymore, and in 6 months I might ask to be back on. But I don't know what the future holds for me. But for now, I bid everybody adieu, and thank you very much.
In case you didn't know it, Brian's kind of a big deal. So just in case you didn't know it. Absolutely. At this point, I'll call for an adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? adjourn. Would you,
I didn't vote in favor. I'm going to bid no to adjourn.
you want to stay?
I want to say nay to adjournment, please.
Nay to adjournment. Please put that in the books. Brian, I am supposed to give you an opportunity to explain why you went against it.
I just like this. I just like to continue doing it, that's all.
We're going to miss you, buddy.
Although, maybe I should move us to executive session.
Cut his mic.